Cave 4 at Qumran is carved directly into a limestone cliff face 50 meters above the Dead Sea floor. Inside the Rockefeller Museum in East Jerusalem, fragment 4Q201, the Aramaic Book of Enoch, rests under controlled conditions. Access requires a written petition to the Israel Antiquities Authority. The parchment is 2,100 years old. Its ink remains fully legible under infrared imaging, and the man it describes walked with God so completely, death never found him. Banned, buried, called dangerous. In 363 AD, the Council of Laodicea voted the Book of Enoch out of the Western biblical canon. No debate preserved for public record, no formal charge, just removal. The text survived only in Ethiopic jayas, carried by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and in Aramaic fragments hidden in desert caves. It stayed that way for 1,500 years. Then, 1952 happened. Excavators working Qumran Cave 4 pulled 11 separate Aramaic manuscripts into the light. 11. A single cave held more copies of this text than the entire Western Church had acknowledged for 15 centuries. The number alone flips the status of everything that followed. This was not a fringe document. It was a library cornerstone, deliberately set aside. Here is what the text actually describes. Not mythology, not allegory. A man named Enoch who developed a specific, repeatable method of communion with God, a prayer posture so consistent, so documented, that the text calls him the scribe of righteousness, an active intercessor, a man whose entire life was structured around sustained divine contact. That is the thesis of what you are about to see, not a devotional, a forensic examination. In the next several minutes, you will see what the ancient manuscripts say about Enoch's method, what modern neuroscience has confirmed about the same practice, and what 30 days of replicating that method produced, documented, dated, and presented here as evidence. If suppressed biblical history is the archive you want opened, subscribe now. Every week, this channel surfaces what was removed and presents the record as it actually stands. The text is older than the removal, and it is far more specific than the Council of Laodicea wanted anyone to know. Genesis 5:24 is 6 words in the original Hebrew, 6 words that have been translated carefully enough to be misread for centuries. The verse reads, "And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." The Hebrew verb at the center of that sentence is halak, not visited, not worshipped at appointed times, not sought God in moments of crisis. Halak, walked, present continuous, an ongoing, unbroken motion. The same verb form used to describe water flowing from a source. It does not stop. It does not pause for seasons or festivals or the building of a temple. It simply continues. Enoch had no temple. He had no written Torah. The Levitical priesthood would not exist for another several centuries. Every institutional structure that later generations would rely on for access to God, none of it existed yet. And the text records 365 years of unbroken communion anyway. That is the impossible knowledge beat embedded in the plain text. He should not have known how to do this. There was no system, no precedent, no inherited liturgy. Yet Genesis records the result without qualification. God took him, not death. Relocation. The Aramaic manuscript 4Q201, fragment 2, held in the Rockefeller Museum and translated by Dr. Michael Knibb in his 1978 Oxford Critical Edition, adds a title to Enoch that Genesis does not use. It calls him the scribe of righteousness. That phrase carries legal weight in the ancient Near Eastern world. A scribe of righteousness was not a passive observer. He was an active participant in the proceedings of a court, recording, interceding, petitioning on behalf of others. Enoch was not simply walking alongside God in a general spiritual sense. He was functioning, operating, engaged in ongoing, purposeful contact. The New Testament does not soften this reading. The letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 5 and 6, names 3 non-negotiables that defined Enoch's posture. First, he believed God existed. Second, he trusted in God's goodness, specifically that God rewards those who seek him. Third, he sought diligently. The Greek word there is exiteo, intensive prefix, eke, attached to the root for seeking, to seek out completely, to pursue to the point of finding, not occasional, not seasonal, diligent. 3 conditions, all 3 sustained across 365 years. And the result was a life that Genesis records without the standard closing line used for every other name in that genealogy. Every other patriarch in Genesis 5 ends the same way, and he died. When the text reaches Enoch, the formula breaks. The scribal pattern, repeated 8 times before and after him, simply does not apply. Now comes the century bridge. In 2025, Dr. Brian Haverkamp published findings on the neurological effects of sustained contemplative prayer on the brain's default mode network, the system active during self-referential thought, mind-wandering, and the processing of internal experience. His data showed that extended, consistent prayer practice restructures the default mode network measurably. The regions associated with ego dissolution and perceived contact with an external presence become more integrated over time. The brain, under sustained prayer, begins to function differently at the structural level. The ancients called it walking with God. Neuroscience in 2025 calls it default mode network restructuring. Same phenomenon, different century, different vocabulary. The mechanism the text describes, daily, diligent, unbroken seeking, is precisely what the research identifies as the condition required to produce the measurable result. Enoch's posture is not metaphor. It is a documented method. The manuscript confirms it. The neuroscience confirms it. And 30 days of replicating that method produced results that neither of those sources fully prepared for. But here is what makes this stranger. The method has an internal architecture, a specific structure, and when that structure was followed exactly, something in the pattern began to respond. The Dead Sea Scrolls fragment, cataloged as 4Q204, fragment 1, sits in the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem. It was translated by scholar Florentino Garcia Martinez and cross-referenced against the Ethiopic manuscript tradition. What it preserves is a record of Enoch's intercessory posture, and it is specific enough to replicate. The text, drawn from the opening verses of the 14th division of 1 Enoch, describes Enoch approaching the divine presence, face to the ground, not bowed, not kneeling, face to the ground. That distinction matters because the posture is not symbolic decoration. It is the entry condition for everything that follows. Then comes the Ge'ez term that stopped the translators cold. The word is yet nase. Literally rendered, it means he was lifted. Not he rose, not he stood. He was lifted, passive voice, external agency. The text is recording a reciprocal divine response to the posture. Enoch went down. Something brought him up. He had no framework for neuroscience, no access to peer-reviewed literature on relational cognition. Yet the structure he describes, deliberate lowering followed by an externally initiated elevation, maps onto something researchers would not begin measuring for another 2.5 millennia. The 30 days were not arbitrary. The architecture was precise. Days 1 through 10 were assigned to deliberate humility, not performed humility, deliberate, the kind that requires the practitioner to actively dismantle the assumption that they are the most important presence in the room. Days 11 through 20 introduced reverent fear, not terror, not dread, but the specific quality of attention that arises when you are in the presence of something vastly larger than yourself and you know it. Days 21 through 30 were assigned to diligent daily seeking, showing up, returning, refusing to treat the silence as rejection. That structure was followed exactly. Each phase, each duration, each posture replicated as closely as the text permitted. In 2009, researcher C. Andrade published findings through the National Library of Medicine, indexed on PubMed, examining the measurable psychological shifts produced by sustained intercessory prayer practice. The data showed statistically significant increases in perceived relational connection, not imagined, not self-reported as wishful thinking, but measured against standardized relational cognition instruments. The participants felt less alone. They felt accompanied. They felt in language the researchers carefully avoided, heard. The ancient text predicted this, not metaphorically. The yetnesh, the being lifted, is the textual description of exactly that shift. The practitioner goes down in humility. Something responds. The posture is not the prayer, the posture is the signal. 3 times across the 30 days, unsolicited guidance arrived within 48 hours of a specific intercessory session, not vague impressions, not coincidences that required interpretation to qualify. 3 documented instances, written down the same day they occurred, where the answer to a specific question arrived through an external source before the question had been spoken to anyone else. 48 hours, twice in the first phase, once in the third. That is not the kind of data you dismiss. That is the kind of data you sit with. The Andrade study did not use the word guidance. It used perceived relational connection. The language is different. The mechanism appears to be the same. A text written before the Common Era described a posture, a sequence, and a response. A peer-reviewed study published in 2009 measured the response without knowing the posture. And a 30-day replication in the present produced the documented results the text said to expect. The ancients called it walking with God. The researchers called it relational shift under sustained intercessory practice. Same phenomenon, different vocabulary. The data from the 30 days aligns with what the ancient text predicted, and the alignment is not approximate. It is exact. And the text does not stop at the posture or the sequence. It names what arrives when the sequence is completed faithfully. The Ethiopic manuscript tradition preserves a passage in the 71st division of 1st Enoch that has no parallel in canonical scripture. Dr. Michael Knibb, whose 1978 Oxford translation remains the academic standard for Ethiopic Enoch, rendered it with careful precision. The text reads, "You are the Son of Man born to righteousness." Heaven speaks back. That is the claim. Not that Enoch heard a voice in his imagination, not that he interpreted a feeling. The text records a direct address. Heaven identified him, named him, spoke to him in return. The Ge'ez word underlying that address is teseba, rooted in a verb that means to be distinguished, to be made visible, to be set apart from the general. It is not a compliment, it is a recognition. The text is describing a moment where the practitioner becomes legible to the presence they have been seeking, 30 days of going down. And then, visibility. He had no way to know what visibility would look like from the other side. He had no neuroscience, no imaging technology, no framework for what the human brain does when it sustains relational attention toward an unseen presence over time. Yet what he describes, the shift from seeking to being found, corresponds to something researchers would not detect until 2025. Dr. Haverkamp's paper, published that year and publicly indexed on PubMed, examined default mode network activation during sustained prayer. The default mode network is the brain's social cognition architecture. It activates when you are in relationship with another person, processing their presence, anticipating their response, registering their attention toward you. Haverkamp's data showed that during sustained prayer, the default mode network activates in patterns indistinguishable from those produced by interaction with a present, attentive other. The brain, in other words, registers the presence as real, not imagined, not simulated, present. The researchers called it sustained relational neural entrainment. The brain entrained, synchronized with a relational presence it could not see. Enoch called it walking with God. Same phenomenon, different century. On day 23 of the 30-day replication, something arrived that required no interpretation. A directional answer, specific, clear, addressed to a question that had been carried silently for 11 days, came through an external source. It was written down the same day. The source had no knowledge of the question. The timing was not ambiguous. The content was not general. It was precise in the way that only an answer can be precise when it is responding to a question it was never told. That is what the text predicted. Not a feeling, not a mood shift, a response, legible, documented, arrived on day 23. The default mode network does not generate external events. Haverkamp's paper does not claim that it does. What it demonstrates is that the brain, under sustained intercessory practice, enters a state of genuine relational engagement. The same neural state it enters when another person is present and attending to you. The ancient text describes the completion of that state as the moment heaven speaks back. The neuroscience describes it as entrainment. The experiment documented it on day 23. The ancients called it walking with God. Neuroscience calls it sustained relational neural entrainment. The 30 days produced a written record of the moment those two descriptions collapsed into a single event. But the most disturbing part is not what happened during the 30 days. It is what the text says happens to those who stop. Fragment 4, Q201, sits in the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem right now. The Israel Antiquities Authority catalog lists it. You can verify that today. Haverkamp's 2025 paper on default mode network activation during sustained prayer is indexed on PubMed. The search takes 30 seconds. The data is public. Genesis 5 verse 24 has never been removed from any canon. Not one. It reads the same in every tradition that carries it. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. The mechanism the text describes, humility, reverent fear, daily seeking, heaven responding, is not sealed inside a museum case. It is not restricted behind an academic paywall. It is not lost. It is still running in anyone willing to replicate the 30 days. If you have ever sustained a prayer practice and noticed something shift, describe it below. This channel investigates ancient texts and what they still activate. Subscribe if that evidence matters to you.